Okay, so Nathaniel Blumberg, tell me your first meeting with Nathaniel.
My first meeting was when my dad brought my sister down to college here in 1956. And we went up to meet the dean. He was, I think, 34 years old then, just a kid. And he was introducing my daughter, and then he turns to me, my dad, and he turns to me and he says, "Now here's the one that's coming down in a couple of years." It says, "Just remember one thing, he works best under pressure." And so I kind of looked at my old man. I says, "Thanks, Dad." I think Nathaniel never forgot that because we got the pressure. So that was the first meeting. Yeah, he had kind of a reddish brown hair. He was very young guy, and I thought, wow, okay, let's go. So a couple of years later, I came down, and we got to be very good friends because he'd known of my grandfather, and was very interested in Montana journalism. And so throughout school, and so on and so forth, got to know him a lot better after a while. And actually, we became very, very best friends for the rest of his life.
Well, tell me about what would you describe his teaching style as?
His teaching style was tempestuous, but very compassionate. And that is the one word I think really typified him because he really cared that the students would get it. He really cared that the students would succeed, but he would not tolerate mediocrity or half-hearted attempts or, flakiness. He would want you to do your best, and he would get all over you if you didn't. And, and that was pretty much his style. And I liked it myself, having grown up with my old man who was very similar. Some people it kind of hit him pretty hard, but the thing is, hundreds of students stayed in touch with him. He maintained communication with all kinds of, and most of it was initiated by the students. But he would also see him out, in TV and in the news business, and he would send them notes when he saw an error, or he would congratulate them on a job well done. So he really, really cared, and that was the part that came through all the time. Is this guy wants you to do your best, and he will accept nothing less.
I think some people don't accept that at the time, but they probably get that light bulb comes on a little later.
Yeah, there's all kinds of resistance because and I was the same too. You come out of high school, and your whole life, your parents have been taking care of you in one way or another. In most cases, and you're still kind of looking for your mommy. When you come up short, you're looking for somebody to say, "Oh, it's okay. It'll be all right. Now you just kind of do this and run along." None of that, what's going on at the journalism school.
You grow up.
Yeah, you grow up and you grow up fast, which you naturally resist. But like you say, you get over it, and later on you realize how valuable that training was. It's kind of like, in a sense, it's kind of like the Marine Corps. You have a good drill sergeant, you hate him, but later on when you're in battle, you think, "Oh God, thank God that guy made me do this," And yeah, so that was pretty much his style, and and I, for one, really, really appreciate it. And I know hundreds of others do too, and some of them still bear a few grudges because he could be hot-tempered and come on pretty strong.
But he seemed like a real. You're saying he's only 34 years old. My God. He seemed very charismatic.
Well, he was. He was a brilliant guy intellectually. The Rhodes Scholar and all that, and worked his tail off. And one of the things, if you want to go to a little bit of roots here, he grew up on East Colfax Avenue in Denver, which was sort of the Jewish ghetto. And his father was a doctor. And he grew up with a lot of discrimination against his religion. And so he learned to be a scrapper right early, and he learned that, hey, the only way I'm going to get out of this is I'm going to work my butt off and do great work. And he did. So he brought a lot of that with him. And that had a big influence on him.
Talk about a success story. Wow.
Yeah, yeah.
From that to Rhodes Scholarship to, wow, that's something.
Yeah, yeah, it is too, and especially then, a Rhodes Scholar. That was when the intellectual idea had a lot more sway than it does now. You know, the authority figures, the professors. I remember in the 50s and 60s, they used to quote professors all the time. Now you never hear from them because the
You don't even
intellectuals.
call them professors.
No, call those leftists.
When I hear that, it's like, wow, somebody called me a professor. Wow. So
Yeah.
tell me about the later years. You would keep in touch with him and the relationship that you guys had.
Yeah, uh, mainly I don't know why we just became good friends. We had a lot of mutual interests, and I admired him greatly as a teacher. When I came back from Vietnam, he took me up to his place on the lake, and I remember from one extreme to the other. I was in the hospital for a while, and he came home and he picked me up at the Missoula airport. And he had this old pink 1963 Buick we called the Pink Panther, and he drove me up, and we stopped, and it was right in August, in cherry season. We stopped and got flathead cherries, went up to his little cabin on the lake, and it was just it was like Alice in Wonderland, you know, from where I'd been. And it kind of imprinted me right then, and he put on, you know, Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, which he gave me for my birthday, and we sat there and watched the sun go down over the lake, and I thought, oh my God, I love this place. I'm going to live here. And when I come back, and it was just a kind of, we were just naturally good friends. And I asked him to be the godfather of my oldest son. And he was kind of like a godfather to me, too. So, I helped him, oh man, all his publications. I typed the manuscript, 200 pages of the afternoon of March 30th. His Treasure State Review, which went on for 10 years, his newsletter on journalism and justice. I designed him and laid him out at first, and then gradually showed him how to use PageMaker at the time, which is like InDesign now. And so we were involved, and I went on a 10-day trip with him to Belgium, because he was in the Battle of the Bulge, and he wanted to rewrite his company history. So we went back to Belgium 50-some years after World War II ended, and we met all these people from the Belgian underground and all these amazing people. And we found two twins whose life he'd helped save when they were 3 months old, and they were now 53 years old, and had a reunion with them. And so we had a ton of really great experiences together, because it was all about publishing and journalism and friendship. You know, it was really great. And so we just carried on by doing things together.
So now comes the question, what's the one word that you would use to describe Nathaniel Blumberg?
Well, I think, as I mentioned earlier, I think compassionate. He was a compassionate person because he cared so much, and sometimes to a fault. You know, he'd go to extremes, and tempestuous, I think, would be the second word.